In this episode, the bindweed battle continues as I rescue our currant bushes. We sow our first seeds in the Mossy Grove garden, and I could take you through some herbal remedies for sore throats that you've probably already got in your cupboard. Welcome to Mossy Grove. It had been a wet, rainy week this week, but I'd got so much done, including getting the first YouTube video uploaded after spending hours editing, which was good fun. But I got my work done, got the bills paid, and finally it was that time to really enjoy Mossy Grove. I made some potions and then got those boots on because the sun was out. There was a rare gap in that rain, and it was time to head down to Mossy Grove Gardens. Please excuse the random wheelie bin in the shot there. So it was time to start tackling that bindweed, and it had really started to take over our beautiful currant bushes. It was quite a job to do, and as you can see, I was on my own. The lovely Sienna, she was visiting family, but I really didn't mind. It was so peaceful. The sun was out, and I'd missed that so much. The only thing was, it was incredibly windy, and you'll notice that in the recordings. But I was getting through this in no time and disposed of it really well, making sure none of those roots escaped. As I got to the bottom and I started actually trying to find where the roots began, I realised it was actually quite hard to tell visibly, or at least it was going to be quite hard to tell visibly, which was bindweed and which was going to be new growth coming from the actual bush. I found that for me, the easiest way of me recognising the difference is by touch. The bindweed has almost, it's a strong stringy feel, but it's almost like a slightly elasticy, rubbery kind of thing to the touch. I can't quite explain it. It's something that I feel. Whereas the new growth, or the growth that's the dieback that's not quite reached the bottom of the bush stems, is definitely less waxy to feel. It's definitely more substantial, but it's that waxy feel that I'm finding is really helpful. So I'm going to have to really remember that in the spring when we have lots of new thin roots coming up, and new growth coming up from the bush as well. Onwards. Wow, now I've really made a start. You can see how little greenery is actually truly on this currant bush. Last time you saw it, it was looking like there was lots of leaves on it, but actually it was mostly all the bindweed. And the bindweed is so well established here that it's growing really in with the root system of the currants. And so although we will be able to keep on top of new growth now, we've freed this beautiful bush up to do its thing. When the warm weather comes again, we are not going to be able to eradicate bindweed. As a herbalist, I have uses for so many weeds. What most people would consider a useless plant getting in the way, I could probably tell you a multitude of things that you could use it in. So this part of the project is particularly hard for me because not only are there weeds here which I could be using and could be growing, but that's not encouraged on an allotment, of course. There's also a multitude of plants and flowers that I have yet to identify, and yet because I want to grow my choice of herbs and plants in this area, then digging some of these up is a sad but necessary part of the process. For example, there are some beautiful bulbs in here which I've already had to pull up. I don't know what they were, and I feel very guilty that the person who last had this plot has put all of this effort into planting and I'm pulling it up. Difficult, isn't it? When I've been blessed with such a beautiful plot that's already been worked, this is the downside. It's not having a clean page, it's not having a clean slate, it's working on good foundations, granted in my case, but nevertheless it's accepting that you are going to have to pull up someone else's hard work in what was once clearly their dream allotment. So onwards I go. I'm sorry, it's got to be done. Why do I feel so guilty? Oh well, I'm sure Mother Nature will forgive me, and if she doesn't, I will pray very hard for what goes in this plot here. I know that doesn't look like a lot of work, but for me, that is one heck of a lot of work. Physically, I mean. Probably hear I'm out of breath. So I'm going to take a little break, and I'm going to reward myself and hope that my camera doesn't fall over while I carry on talking to you in this wind. Because what I'm going to plant today is this. This is one of the rare herbs that you can plant in autumn, and although it's not going in any of my food, it is soapwort. As you can see, it's a little bit of an old packet, and it is from Jecker's Herbs, one of my favourite herb suppliers for medicinal and culinary herbs. Soapwort is a wonderful foaming agent, so you can use it to make your homemade washing powders. You can use it in the bath. You can use it for shampoos. It wouldn't necessarily be my first choice if I was actually making a bottle of shampoo, for example, but it's a wonderful, wonderful plant to have around for times of shortages and for interest as well, and for experimentation. So this time of year, it's hard to find things that you can plant. This is one of those things. If anything, it's a little bit late, so it should normally go in early autumn. But we've had quite a mild start to the winter, so I think I'm going to get away with it. And ultimately, this is a old herb packet, so it's old seeds. So if it doesn't go in the ground now, it's not going to stand a chance pretty much if I leave it another year anyway. So let's give it a go, see what happens. And if nothing comes of it, then nothing's wasted. At least we've given these little babies a chance. So they're very small seeds. Something I've learned quite recently is the smaller the seed, the more light it needs to germinate. But they're quite small, so they're just going to be sprinkled on the top with a very light covering then. So I'm just going to do what I've learnt is called a broadcast sowing, where, just get rid of that weed, where you sprinkle it generally over the area. And I'm going to put them all in because at the end of the day, if I get 50% of these come up, I will be shocked. I'm thinking perhaps because they've been sat in the cupboard for so long, about 25% might come up if we're lucky. So I'm going to stick them all in, and then if we are blessed enough to need to thin them out, then happy days. And then all I'm going to do, because they're so small, is just take some of the soil that I've turned and just gently cover it over. There we go. As easy as that. That is my little reward for all my hard work today. Dirty hand. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tidy up the mess that I've made. I'm going to head off home. I'm going to make myself a warm drink, and I'm going to speak to you about sore throats, because that's kind of what's happening with me this morning. So something special is going in my tea when I get back. So here I am back at home and I'm in my kitchen, and as I mentioned out on the allotment, I did start to feel I had a bit of a scratchy throat, a bit of a head coming on, and I thought, oh dear, here we go. It's that time of year, isn't it? The season for feeling rough, but not for very long if you've got access to a few simple things in your kitchen, which, to be honest with you, is probably already sitting there. So how does somebody start with herbs? Well, first of all, herbs have been used in the household for, forever and ever and ever and a day. They form the basis of a lot of recipes. They form the basis of a lot of medicinal systems as well. And you've probably got a ton sat in your kitchen that you haven't even thought of as medicine. Herbs, as they're used in food in their whole form, ground up, sometimes powdered, sometimes flaked, often dried, but ultimately their whole form are very, very safe when used in everyday cooking and everyday foods. It's when we start extracting parts of those and concentrating parts of those in various different ways that we have to be a little bit more careful. Herbs do interact with multiple medications. They act differently in the body in people that have different health diagnosis as well. So if you are taking any medications, if you are diagnosed with any health condition, if you're pregnant, then these warnings aren't there just to cover herbalists' backs, and they shouldn't just be taken as extra bits on the back of a packaging. They should be taken very, very seriously. The moment we start extracting compounds and concentrating them, they have a more higher potency in the body, they have a more strong effect in the body, and that can be both good and both bad. We have to treat these with respect, and this is one of the reasons why I speak so openly and so frequently generally about the risks of buying from any natural remedies, whether that's supplements, whether that's herbs, even essential oils, from unqualified sellers that are there to sell a product. It's a little bit risky. They don't always emphasize the safety aspect. They don't always make it known that you need to be careful in certain situations. So that's a top tip for you. But meanwhile, if you want to start delving into this wonderful world of herbal medicine and herbalism, then what's already in your cupboard is a great way to start. So let's have a little look at some I've grabbed just out of the back of my kitchen cupboard. We've got some wonderful examples here. Some ground cinnamon, for example. Cinnamon is a wonderfully warming. It's great for stabilising blood sugars. If you struggle with a lot of cravings around hormone changes throughout the month, cinnamon is a great thing to add. You do have to be careful how much you have of it, however, so do some research on that. We've got rosemary. Rosemary is wonderful. We've all got it, put it on our potatoes, on our Sunday roasts, what have you. But rosemary is fabulous for focus, concentration. It's known as the memory herb, lots of different reasons. It does help with alertness and with focus. So that's a really good one to look at. Lemongrass, one of my favourites. I grow it here. I had a lovely big plant in the office in Mossy Grove, but I have chopped it down and I've got drying its leaves now so it can recover and put energy into its roots over this season. But meanwhile, we had some in the cupboard anyway, just from cooking. Lemongrass is a wonderfully refreshing herb. So although it lifts, it doesn't necessarily stimulate, but it lifts and it refreshes. Top tip, if you are very sensitive, you like to spend a lot of time in your headspace, so to speak, you're a bit of a creative, you find it hard to keep grounded and keep in the physical world, it's a good idea to pair lemongrass with something that's going to help ground you and earth you, because it does tend to give you a creative whoosh, if you like. Perfect pairs with lemongrass is ginger. Ginger is wonderful. It's warming, it's rooting, it's earthing. It gives a little bit of sensation in the mouth if you're having it in infusions and things like this. So it helps you stay fully present in the now and really does balance that creative wooshy airiness that lemongrass can give during its refreshment. Ground ginger, also fabulous for nausea. It's good if you're feeling a little bit travel sick. Ginger is brilliant for that. It's one of the few herbs that are safe for use in pregnancy in most cases, so do check with your midwife or doctor. What about adding some of this into something fun? This is black pepper. Most of us have got this, again, in the kitchen cupboard. It's fabulously warming. You can use it in your lotions and your creams, in for massage. You can use it to help if you're feeling a little bit bunged up and a bit congested. You can pair black pepper with turmeric to help your body access and use the parts of the turmeric that are really anti-inflammatory. Adding pepper does that. So wonderful. So I could go on and on and on, but these are relatively cheap. You can buy them in your supermarket. You've probably already got a load in your cupboard. You've got things like thyme, oregano, antiviral, antibacterial. So how do we change it from food into medicine? Well, one of the simplest ways, if you're starting out, is simply making a tea. And the reason being is that when you make an infusion, because it's not technically a tea unless it's from the tea plant, but when you make an infusion or herbal tea as we know it, what happens is the water-soluble chemicals, biochemical, the natural chemicals from the plant, the water-soluble ones, are drawn out of the plant. They're dissolved in the plant material, they're dissolved in the water, and then it concentrates. So the longer you leave it, the more is drawn out into the water, and so it becomes more potent. It leaves behind the fibre and things that would slow down its absorption and digestion in the body. You drink those water-soluble constituents on their own. So very, very useful, very underestimated, brilliant for things like sleepy teas, for example. But one tip I would say, if you are starting with herbal teas, don't get into the mistake of thinking that you're going to enjoy the flavour of all of them. Remember that these infusions, a lot of them are there for functional purposes, medicinal use, functional teas, as I call them, functional infusions. When you drink them, you may not enjoy the flavour. So what I say is make it very, very strong, brew it long, keep it covered so you don't lose any of those constituents in the steam as it's brewing. Make it really strong, and then you can have it in shot form, let it go cold, keep it covered while it's cooling, let it cool right down, and then down the hatch, job done. Okay, over time you adjust to the flavours, you start to enjoy them, your brain and your body starts to recognise them as being something that's really positive, and you start to build a little bit of a ritual around making the infusion, around the experience of drinking and sipping the infusion, and you become accustomed to these often very herbaceous or resinous flavours. You can also then begin later on to play with blending and adding different things in, but for now what I'd suggest doing is get something that we know tastes nice, something like your ginger and your lemongrass, perhaps and make a tea from those. Perhaps add a little bit of cinnamon into your English breakfast tea. That's really nice to do. And don't forget to add additional benefits. Don't just add sugar in. Sugar is inflammatory. It's not great for us. I love the stuff. I eat a load of it. I really shouldn't. And it is one of the things in life that I really struggle with. But when I'm doing medicinal blending, herbal teas, I don't go for sugar. I go for honey. Now, if you're vegan and you like to stay away from animal products, this isn't going to suit you at all. I would suggest looking at things like maple syrup, for example. But honey is antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal. It has so many properties of its own, and it's brilliant for tackling any germs, any bacteria or virus, you know, they like to sit in the back of the throat. You inhale them and they get caught in the tonsil area and all of this jazz. Well, having honey there right in the back of the throat can help nail that super fast. So it's worth considering if you're not vegan. Then we've got some other things in my collection. These are my homegrown herbs. So I've got some sage here. Sage is wonderful. I don't like the flavour of sage. People love it. I struggle with the flavour, but I love the benefits. Sage is wonderful for, again, for sore throats. Absolutely fantastic. It's good for the gums as well. If you have bleeding or sore gums, making a rinse, a mouth rinse from sage, fabulous. Of course, woman of my age, I am perimenopausal. We're hearing a lot of that over the media now, which is brilliant. But I find sage really, really useful if I'm feeling a lot of flushing and a lot of heat. Likewise in summer, I find it really useful as well. When we have that mad heat wave, I used a lot of sage as well. It's very cooling and drying, so fabulous. So yeah, so that will be going in my tea, and this was from my garden, which is lovely. So that's going in. I've also got some, also from my garden, some peppermint. Wonderful. Peppermint is lovely because it helps to open up the nasal passage. It helps to remove mucus or help mucus move and flow if you're bunged up. It does give a little lift, a little refreshment, which we all need when we're feeling run down with a cold. And it tastes wonderful too. It genuinely does taste amazing.
Join us next time as we get ahead of the seasons and start choosing our annual strawberries. We research the different varieties and their growing methods before I take you through the traditional medicinal uses and finally the meanings and spiritual properties of this well-loved fruit. We'll see you next time. Prayers and potions.